What do you do when literally no one seems to want your product or service? Is it a marketing problem? Maybe not. Is it a product or service problem? Again, maybe not. Is it a work ethic problem? Look, I know you all pretty well out there, so I don't think laziness is an issue. So what is it and what do you do? Well, you start to sell something else, of course. Yeah, I know. It even sounds crazy to me when I say it out loud. But hear me out, because this is actually kind of brilliant. Let me take you back to 2008. Imagine two guys walk into a room filled with business people and give a pitch that sounds something like this. Hey, we've built a website where strangers pay to sleep in somebody's home. No background checks and no safety features. We call it Airbed and Breakfast. You can probably imagine the response these two guys got. Yeah, two guys in San Francisco launch a website to rent out air mattresses in strangers' living rooms. It's weird, it's awkward, they get crickets, no one's booking, and no one's even talking about it. In fact, pretty much no one cares. Do you ever feel that way about your product or service? You know, you're shouting from the mountaintop and no one's listening. Well, in 2008, Brian Shesky and Joe Giba were flat broke. I mean, like selling their furniture on Craigslist broke. Their startup, called Airbed and Breakfast, had launched during a tech conference in San Francisco. And while a few people were using it, it definitely wasn't taking off. People just weren't saying no, they were saying, are you insane? Nobody wants to sleep in a stranger's house. But let's be honest, that's kind of a normal reaction. After all, this was pre-Uber. You know, paying to ride in a stranger's car, and pre-DoorDash, aka having some stranger pick up and deliver your carryout for you. Now, this was pretty much before apps controlled our lives. Now, at the time, this sounded less like a good business model and way more like a crime waiting to happen. So what do you do when you're out of money, out of options, and your startup is one unpaid bill away from crashing and burning? Do you pack it in and call your mom and ask if the couch is still available? No, I suggest you do what Joe and Brian did. You do something that nobody expects. For Joe and Brian, after watching a lot of TV, staring at a blank appointment calendar, and drinking a lot of coffee, and brainstorming how they could make money in any way, because as you know, figuring out where your next meal is coming is actually kind of important, right? Well, one day they look at that calendar in a whole different way, and the light bulb goes off. It was election season. Barack Obama versus John McCain. America's divided, the stakes are high, and everybody's stuck on CNN like it's the new Netflix. While watching the political news one day, one of them, obviously in an over-caffeinated stupor, blurts out, hey, what if we made presidential-themed cereal boxes? Yeah, of course, not software, not a business pivot, cereal boxes. Now at this point, I might have laughed, I might have even cried a little, but I would have gone right back to updating my resume. But not Brian and Joe. No, they jumped right in and said, let's do it. They talked a friend into whipping up some box designs for them. They ordered a few hundred blank cereal boxes from a print shop, and I bet they got pretty forgiving terms. And then they started gluing custom Obama O's and Captain McCain labels onto cereal boxes. And these boxes were filled with off-brand Cheerios and Captain Crunch. No joke, these were not gourmet cereals. This was the ultimate white label, same junk in different packaging business model. But here's the kicker. They didn't just sell these for a few dollars like normal cereal. They sold each limited edition box for $40. Yeah, 40 American dollars for a cereal box you were never going to eat. And people bought them like crazy. Why? Well, because it was 2008 and America was frothing at the mouth over Obama and McCain. The packaging was clever, the timing was perfect, and the scarcity was real. Plus, novelty sells, especially when it's political and collectible, and when it's just insane enough to be brilliant. In the end, they made about $30,000 selling these cardboard boxes of knockoff cereal, which for two guys who were kind of on the brink of bankruptcy, it's kind of like striking gold. That money gave them enough runway to keep Airbed and Breakfast alive. and eventually buy them enough runway to actually fix the business. One of the cereal boxes ends up on the desk of a guy named Paul Graham. Now, Paul's an angel investor of sorts. He sees the box and laughs and says, anyone scrappy enough to do this, I want in. Now, the irony was that Paul had passed on Airbnb a few months before, but he's now looking at these guys in a whole new light. That's how Airbnb got their first break. Not because of their product, because of a freaking breakfast cereal side hustle. Now, what does this got to do with your business? Everything. Okay, by the way, now's the perfect time to zap that like button and leave me a comment. Is this making sense? Because sometimes the path to making your product successful isn't a straight line. Sometimes what your business needs isn't another tweet to your homepage or another social media post. Sometimes your business just needs to sell something. And when you do, it's a cash injection. And no one's ever complained about more cash, right? It's also a credibility builder. If you can sell that, you can probably sell this. And it's a proof that you're resourceful. And resourcefulness is a huge, successful business trait. Sometimes the best way to buy yourself some time isn't grinding harder. It's selling something totally unrelated so you can get a win fast. Think of it kind of like a pressure relief valve for your business. Sales are dead. Business isn't coming in. What can you sell right now that doesn't require you to fix your main offer? Maybe it's a service. Maybe it's a physical product. Maybe it's a damn cereal box, if it comes to that. Now, here's the hidden golden nugget. In my experience, coaching and advising businesses from startup up to, through, and including, in my investment banking days, working with businesses doing hundreds of millions of dollars, the big takeaway here is that every action counts. And don't worry, you're not abandoning your core business. You're extending its runway. You're giving it space to evolve while you're bringing in some cash. And I guarantee you're ultimately going to be better because you are making yourself better. Too many entrepreneurs think that the success has to come from the product. But really, business is all about momentum. And whatever keeps that momentum going, even if it's weird, even if it's temporary, is fair game. Airbnb didn't win because they had the best app. They won because their backs were against the wall and they got scrappy. They stopped obsessing over the business and started solving the problem, which in their case meant turning to cereal. Remember when I said every action counts? Well, let's review how that cereal box hustle turned them into $1 billion business. First, it proved they could sell anything. Before they could get people to sleep in strangers' homes, they had to prove they could sell. The cereal boxes, Obama's O's and Captain McCain, weren't about breakfast. They were about the story, about emotion, timing, and novelty. Selling them gave Brian and Joe the confidence and the evidence that they could move a $40 cereal with no product market fit and no repeat customers. And they figured if they could do that, then maybe, just maybe, they could get people to rent out their extra bedrooms.